My son skipped my 70th birthday party to play baseball with his friends, leaving me alone in a restaurant. I smiled through the pain, then booked a one-way ticket to Las Vegas. When he saw the message from the bank, he panicked, fell to his knees, and begged. Before continuing, subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is in your region right now. My name is Reuben Morgan. I'm 70 years old, living in Phoenix, Arizona. Spent 42 years as a certified public accountant before hanging up my calculator for good. I always believed that family was the most precious thing in life, that blood runs thicker than water. That belief cost me more than I'd like to admit. Let me tell you about my son, James. He's 42 now, married to Jennifer for 12 years. They live in my house. Well, our house, technically, though I'm the only name on the deed, along with their two kids, Emma and Tyler, 8 and 10 years old, respectively. Beautiful children. Shame they're being raised by parents who think responsibility is something that happens to other people. James wasn't always like this. I remember when he was young, maybe 7 or 8, he'd wait by the window every evening for me to come home from work. The moment my car pulled into the driveway, he'd sprint out the front door, arms wide open, shouting, "Dad's home!" like I was returning from war instead of a day of number crunching. Those were good years, simple years. Everything changed 12 years ago when Jennifer entered the picture. Don't misunderstand me. She was charming at first. Beautiful smile, perfect manners, the kind of woman who could make you feel like the most interesting person in the room. I was happy for James, relieved even that he'd found someone. But charm, I've learned, is often just a prettier word for manipulation. The transformation was gradual. First, it was small things. Jennifer would suggest James should focus more on his career instead of helping me with yard work on weekends. Then she'd mention how exhausting it must be for them to drive across town to visit me. Wouldn't it be easier if they just moved in? The house was big enough after all. I was alone. It made sense. And like a fool, I agreed. Within 6 months of them moving in, I noticed the shift. James stopped asking how my day was, stopped joining me for our Sunday chess games. Jennifer had opinions about everything, how I organized the kitchen, what temperature I kept the thermostat, whether I really needed to watch the evening news so loudly. "It's his house, too, now," she'd say, smiling that perfectly rehearsed smile. "We should all compromise." Except compromise only seemed to work in one direction. The financial support started innocently enough. James's car broke down. Could I help with repairs? Jennifer's mother was sick. Could they borrow money for plane tickets? Emma needed braces. Tyler's school required new uniforms. The requests came like waves, each one reasonable on its own, but together they formed a tsunami that swept away my retirement savings bit by bit. I kept track, of course. Old habits from 4 decades of accounting don't die easily. $2,800 a month in free rent, market value for a 4-bedroom house in our neighborhood. $450 for the car lease I stupidly co-signed. $380 in utilities I paid entirely. And the small cash requests, anywhere from $500 to $1,200 monthly, depending on what crisis Jennifer manufactured that week. Do the math. Over 12 years, I'd given them roughly $340,000. $340,000. And I couldn't remember the last time either of them said thank you. But I told myself it was fine. This is what fathers do. This is what family means. They needed help, and I could provide it. What else was I going to spend money on anyway? My 70th birthday was coming up, a milestone, they call it. 70, the biblical lifespan. I decided to make it special. Not a big party, just a family dinner at Giovanni's Italian Kitchen on Camelback Road. It's been my favorite restaurant for 20 years. The owner, Marco, knows my order by heart. Chicken marsala, extra mushrooms, house salad with Italian dressing on the side. I made the reservation 3 weeks in advance. Table for 5. I told James and Jennifer about it at dinner one evening, trying to keep the eagerness out of my voice. "Sounds nice, Dad," James said, barely looking up from his phone. "We'll be there," Jennifer added, already scrolling through something on her tablet. 2 days before my birthday, James wandered into the living room where I was reading the newspaper. "Hey, Dad, quick question. What time's that dinner thing again?" "Saturday at 6, I said. "Giovanni's, remember?" Right. He scratched his head. that telltale gesture he's had since childhood when he's about to deliver bad news. So, funny thing, the guys scheduled a baseball game that same day, but it's at 2, so we should definitely be done by 6. Might be cutting it close, but we'll make it work. Something cold settled in my stomach. James, it's my birthday dinner. I made reservations. I know. And we'll be there, I promise. It's just a game with the guys. Jeff, Marcus, you know them. Haven't seen them in weeks. But we'll definitely make dinner. I should have known then. Should have seen the writing on the wall, as they say. But hope is a stubborn thing, especially when it comes to your only child. Saturday arrived. I put on my good shirt. The blue one Jennifer once said made my eyes look nice, back when she bothered with compliments. Shaved carefully, splashed on cologne I'd been saving for special occasions. Called a cab because I didn't trust myself to drive, knowing there'd be wine with dinner. I arrived at Giovanni's at 5:45. Marco greeted me with his usual warmth, led me to the table by the window, the one I'd specifically requested because Jennifer once mentioned she liked watching the sunset while dining. 6 o'clock came and went. I checked my phone. Nothing. 6:15. I texted James. We're all set here. See you soon? 6:20. My phone buzzed. Finally. The message was short. Sorry, Dad. Game went long. We're not going to make it. Rain check? We'll celebrate next weekend. I sat there, staring at those words. Marco approached, concern creasing his weathered face. Everything all right, Mr. Morgan? Should I hold off on the appetizers? They're not coming, I heard myself say. The words felt distant, like someone else was speaking them. I'm so sorry. Would you like me to? Just bring me the chicken marsala, Marco, and a glass of the house red. Of course. And Mr. Morgan? Happy birthday. I ate alone at a table set for 5. The waiter had already placed bread rolls at each setting, wine glasses turned upright in anticipation. Every few minutes, other diners would glance over, and I could read the pity in their eyes. Look at the old man eating birthday dinner by himself. I wondered what stories they were inventing. Dead family, widower with no friends. The truth, I thought, chewing marsala that suddenly tasted like cardboard, was somehow worse. I was simply not important enough, not even for 3 hours on one day of the year. The cab ride home felt longer than usual. I tipped the driver extra. Seemed like we were both working on days we'd rather not be. I expected the house to be quiet when I returned. Expected James and Jennifer to be putting the kids to bed, maybe looking sheepish, ready with apologies. Instead, I opened the door to chaos. The living room, my living room, was packed with men I vaguely recognized as James's baseball buddies. Beer bottles covered the coffee table I'd bought in 1987. Someone had spilled chips on the carpet. The television blared highlights from some game, and the men were shouting at the screen like it could hear them. James stood in the center of it all, gesturing wildly, reenacting what I assumed was a winning play. He had grass stains on his jeans, and that flushed, excited look he got when things went his way. He noticed me in the doorway, and his smile faltered for half a second. Oh, hey, Dad. Game was incredible. We destroyed the other team, 12-4. I hit 2 home runs. Can you believe it? I stood there, still wearing my good blue shirt, still smelling of the cologne I'd wasted. The words stuck in my throat. Don't be mad, he continued, turning back to his friends. We'll do dinner another time. It's not that big a deal. Jennifer appeared from the kitchen carrying a tray of sandwiches. She saw me and had the decency to look uncomfortable for approximately 3 seconds. Reuben, she said, using my first name the way she did when she wanted to sound reasonable. You understand, right? This game was important for James. Networking, building relationships. It's practically business. Business, I repeated flatly. These are potential clients. Marcus works in commercial real estate. Jeff's father-in-law owns a construction company. You get it. She set down the tray. Besides, we can celebrate your birthday anytime. It's just a date on a calendar. Just a date on a calendar. 70 years. 42 of them spent building spreadsheets and analyzing tax codes. 12 years of watching my son transform into someone I barely recognized. And it was just a date on a calendar. I walked to my room without another word, closed the door against the laughter and the television noise and the sound of my son celebrating everything except me. Sleep didn't come that night. Instead, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, and let myself remember. James, at graduation, throwing his mortarboard in the air, running to hug me first before anyone else. I couldn't have done it without you, Dad. You're my hero. When did I stop being his hero? James, at 25, showing up at my door at midnight, eyes red from crying. His girlfriend had left him. He'd slept on my couch for 2 weeks while I made him breakfast every morning and listened to him process his heartbreak. I'd taken time off work to be there for him. Who takes time off for me now? I remembered the day he introduced me to Jennifer. We'd gone to lunch, just the three of us. She'd asked me about my work, seemed genuinely interested in the intricacies of estate planning and tax law. Afterward, James had pulled me aside. "What do you think, Dad? She's special, right?" "She seems lovely," I'd said, and I'd meant it. When did lovely curdle into mercenary? The next morning I made coffee in the pre-dawn quiet. The house still smelled like stale beer and testosterone. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and opened Excel, the accountant's meditation tool. 12 years of receipts. 12 years of bank statements. I'd kept everything, of course. Professional hazard. Rent they'd never paid. $2,800 monthly, times 12 months, times 12 years. $403,200. Utilities. $380 monthly, times 144 months. $54,720. The car lease I'd co-signed when James's credit was temporarily bad. $450 monthly for 8 years. $43,200. Then the extras. The emergencies. The birthday money for the kids. The Christmas gifts. The vacation I'd funded because the kids need memories. The laptop. The new furniture. The medical bills when their insurance didn't cover everything. I tallied it 3 times, certain I'd made an error. $342,750. Nearly $350,000, and yesterday they couldn't spare 3 hours. The sun rose over Phoenix, painting the desert sky in shades of pink and gold. I usually found it beautiful. This morning it just looked harsh. Jennifer was the first one up, shuffling into the kitchen in her robe. She startled when she saw me. "You're up early," she said carefully. "Couldn't sleep." "About last night." "Don't." I kept my voice even. "Please don't." She poured herself coffee, added cream, studied me. I could see her calculating, trying to determine how much damage control was needed. "James feels bad," she tried. "Does he?" "He does. You know how he gets caught up in the moment. It wasn't personal." "What would you call it, then?" She didn't have an answer for that, or maybe she did, but knew better than to say it out loud. After a moment, she took her coffee and left. Over the next week, I waited. Waited for James to bring up the promised make-up dinner. Waited for an actual apology. Waited for any sign that my birthday mattered, even in retrospect. James talked about the game. He showed me pictures on his phone of his home runs. He mentioned Marcus might have a lead on a business opportunity. He asked if I could watch the kids Saturday because he and Jennifer had plans. He never mentioned my birthday. On the 8th day, I couldn't help myself. "So," I said over breakfast, "what happened to celebrating my birthday next weekend?" James looked up from his phone, confused. "What?" "You said we'd do dinner the following weekend. It's been over a week." "Oh," he waved his hand dismissively. "I mean, the moment's kind of passed, hasn't it? Seems weird to have a birthday dinner 2 weeks late." The moment's passed. I excused myself, went to my room, and sat on the edge of my bed. My hands were shaking. Not from weakness, from something else. Something that felt almost like clarity, crystallizing into rage. That afternoon, I made 2 phone calls. The first was to Gerald Vasquez, an attorney who specialized in estate planning. We'd crossed paths professionally years ago. His receptionist said he could see me the following Tuesday. The second call was to Kenneth Lee, a financial consultant I'd met at a seminar on asset protection. He had an opening Thursday morning. I didn't tell James or Jennifer about either appointment. That night, I started a new spreadsheet. This one wasn't tracking the past. It was planning the future. A future where my son learned what it felt like to stand on his own 2 feet, where consequences existed, where actions had meaning. I'd spent 42 years helping people protect their assets, structure their estates, plan for contingencies. I'd advised countless clients on how to safeguard what they'd earned from those who felt entitled to it. Time to take my own advice. The plan began to form in my mind. Not revenge exactly. Call it education. James had forgotten what it meant to be self-sufficient. Jennifer had forgotten that generosity wasn't obligation. They'd both forgotten that I was a person, not a resource. I would remind them. But not yet. Not with dramatic confrontations or angry speeches. That wasn't my style. I'd spent 4 decades mastering patience, strategy, precision. This situation would be no different. I looked at the spreadsheet glowing on my laptop screen, numbers and projections stretching into the future. A small smile crossed my face, the first genuine expression I'd felt since before that disastrous birthday dinner. They wanted to treat me like an ATM? Fine. Let's see how they handle it when the machine stops dispensing cash. The transformation had begun. Not in them, not yet. In me. I'd been playing the victim for 12 years. Time to remember what else I could be. Tuesday came. I drove to Gerald Vasquez's office in downtown Phoenix. The building was one of those older structures with character, brick facade, oak doors, the kind of place that suggested stability and tradition. Gerald's receptionist, a woman in her 50s named Patricia, greeted me warmly. "Mr. Morgan, Mr. Vasquez is expecting you. Can I get you coffee? Water?" "Coffee black, thank you." Gerald met me at his office door. He was in his late 50s, silver hair, sharp eyes behind rimless glasses. We'd worked together on a few estate cases over the years, me handling the accounting side, him handling the legal. He'd always struck me as someone who understood that the law was as much about people as it was about statutes. "Reuben," he said, shaking my hand, "good to see you, though I suspect this isn't a social call." "You'd be right." We sat. His office had floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, leather-bound law volumes, a mahogany desk that had seen decades of difficult conversations. I told him everything. The 12 years, the $342,000, the birthday, the casual dismissal, the complete lack of accountability. Gerald listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, he set down his pen. "And what do you want, Reuben? What's your goal here?" "I want control back, over my property, over my money, over my life." "You want them out?" "I want the option to put them out, if necessary. I want leverage. I want them to understand that living in my house is a privilege, not a right." Gerald nodded slowly. "The law is entirely on your side. The house is in your name alone." "Yes. I bought it in 1992. Paid off the mortgage in 2010. "They pay rent?" "Nothing." "Any written agreement? Lease? Anything?" "No. They just moved in. Then legally they're tenants at will. Arizona Revised Statutes. Title 33, Chapter 10. You can terminate their tenancy with a 30-day written notice." He pulled out a form. "It's this simple. You fill this out, sign it, deliver it to them. After 30 days, if they haven't vacated, you can file for eviction." I stared at the form, a single piece of paper. 12 years of resentment could be addressed with this one document, and they can't fight it. They can try, but unless they can prove they had a rental agreement with different terms, or that you're retaliating against them for something protected by law, they have no case. It's your property. You decide who lives there. What about grandparents' rights? They might try to use Emma and Tyler against me. Gerald leaned back in his chair. Arizona does have grandparent visitation statutes, but they're narrow. Basically, if a parent tries to completely cut off your access to your grandchildren out of spite, you can petition the court, keep documentation of any threats they make along those lines. So I'm protected. Legally? Absolutely. Emotionally? He gave me a long look. That's harder. These situations get messy. Family law always does. I know, but I can't keep living like this. We spent the next hour going over details, the eviction process, how to serve notice, what to expect if they refuse to leave. Gerald was thorough, professional, but I could see the sympathy in his eyes. "There's one more thing," I said. "My estate. I want to make changes." "To your will?" "Everything. I want my son to understand that inheritance isn't guaranteed." Gerald pulled out another set of forms. "Walk me through what you're thinking," I explained. "Trusts for the grandchildren, charitable donations, conditions, timelines. Gerald took notes, asked clarifying questions, occasionally suggesting modifications. "This is fairly aggressive," he said finally. "You're essentially disinheriting your son. Unless he earns his way back in. 5 years of proving he's changed. And if he doesn't, then he's learned nothing, and he deserves nothing." Gerald studied me. "You're sure about this?" "I've never been more sure of anything." "All right, I'll draft the documents. Trust agreement, new will, power of attorney. Give me a week." I left his office with the eviction notice form in my briefcase and a strange sense of lightness in my chest. Thursday morning, I met with Kenneth Lee at his Glass Tower office. Kenneth was younger than Gerald, early 50s, dressed in an expensive suit that probably cost more than James made in a month. His office overlooked the Phoenix skyline, all modern furniture and abstract art. "Reuben," he greeted me, "Patricia said you were looking at asset protection strategies." Among other things, I gave him the abbreviated version, enough that he understood the situation without all the emotional weight. Kenneth nodded, pulling up something on his computer. "Let's look at your current asset structure. You mentioned about $730,000 in liquid assets. Give or take, retirement accounts, savings, investments. And your son has access to any of this?" "He's listed as a beneficiary on my retirement accounts. He has access to one credit card. I added him years ago for emergencies, and he can see transactions on my main checking account because I set up shared access when they first moved in." Kenneth winced. "Okay. First thing we do is lock that down. How much do you need immediately accessible?" "Enough for monthly expenses, maybe $12,000. Keep that in your current checking. Everything else we move. Open a new account at a different bank, Wells Fargo, U.S. Bank, somewhere he's never heard you mention. Transfer the bulk of your assets there. Remove him from the credit card. Remove the shared account access. He'll notice. That's the point, isn't it?" Kenneth smiled slightly. "You want leverage. You want him to realize his access to your money isn't permanent." "Yes." We spent 2 hours restructuring everything. Kenneth walked me through the mechanics of transferring funds, closing accounts, opening new ones. By the time I left, I had a clear plan. Over the next week, I executed it with the precision of a military operation. Opened a new account at Wells Fargo. Transferred $680,000 in 3 separate transactions, large enough to move the money, small enough not to trigger immediate bank alerts. I left $12,000 in my Chase account, called the credit card company, removed James as an authorized user. The representative asked if there was fraud. "No," I said, "just no longer necessary." Gathered every receipt, every bank statement, every scrap of financial documentation from the past 12 years. Created a master spreadsheet. Every dollar I'd spent on them. Every expense. Every loan that was never repaid. The final number, $342,750. I printed it out, put it in a folder, set the folder in my desk drawer. Evidence, ammunition, truth. I also started documenting their spending. Every shopping bag Jennifer brought home. Every golf outing James mentioned. Every expensive dinner. Every new gadget. Every frivolous purchase. One afternoon, James brought home new golf clubs. Top of the line, Callaway something or other. He showed them to me with the enthusiasm of a kid on Christmas morning. $890, I noted calmly. "Worth every penny, Dad. These are investment-grade clubs. Everyone at the club has them." "Investment grade?" I almost laughed. Instead, I just added it to my spreadsheet. 3 days later, Jennifer came home with shopping bags from a designer store. Inside, a handbag. Leather, name brand, the kind of thing that costs more than some people's monthly rent. $1,340, I said, looking at the receipt she'd left on the counter. She snatched it away. "It was on sale." "From what? 2,000? "I deserve nice things, Reuben." "Of course you do." "With your money." She stared at me. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing, just an observation." But she heard the edge in my voice. They both did. I'd stopped being quite so accommodating, stopped being quite so available with my wallet. When James asked for $200 for groceries, I said I'd already spent my budget for the week. When Jennifer mentioned the kids needed new shoes, I offered to take Emma and Tyler shopping myself. Small numbers, building to bigger ones. They noticed. Of course they noticed. Jennifer made comments about seniors getting paranoid about money and the elderly needing to trust their families. James asked if everything was okay, if I was worried about my finances. Just being more careful, I said. Inflation, you know. Fixed income. Lies, of course. My retirement accounts were solid, but they didn't need to know that. Let them wonder. Let them worry. Meanwhile, Gerald called. Documents are ready. Want to come in and review? I went the next morning, sat in his office and read through page after page of legal language. The trust agreement, the new will, the power of attorney. Everything I'd wanted, everything I needed. The trust is revocable, Gerald explained. You maintain full control while you're alive, but it protects the assets from claims, and your new will makes your intentions crystal clear. Educational trust for the grandchildren, charitable donations, nothing for James unless he meets the conditions you've specified. And if I die before the 5 years, then the will stands as written. He gets nothing except what you've designated for Emma and Tyler. I signed everything. Gerald had it notarized. Patricia witnessed. You're set, Gerald said. Your assets are protected. Your wishes are documented. Now you just need to decide when to execute the eviction notice. Soon, I said, when the moment is right. I left his office with copies of everything, drove to Wells Fargo, put the documents in a safety deposit box, added the eviction notice form, ready to be filled out when needed. The pieces were in place. The trap was set. All that remained was choosing the perfect moment to spring it. The moment came sooner than I expected. I was at my chess club on a Thursday evening. The Desert Knights met weekly in a community center near downtown. 8 to 10 regulars, a handful of rotating members, all of us past retirement age with too much time and a love of strategy. Rick was there as always. Rick Stewart, 68, former civil engineer, sharp as a tack, and one of the few people who'd been blunt with me about James and Jennifer from the beginning. You're playing differently tonight, he observed, studying the board. We were 40 minutes into a game. I was winning. How so? More aggressive, less defensive. He moved his bishop. Something's changed. I captured his knight. Maybe I'm tired of playing defense. About time. He leaned back. Is this about your birthday? I told him. Couldn't help it. The day after, when he'd asked how the dinner went, the whole story had spilled out, among other things. What did you do? Why do you assume I did something? Because I've known you for 6 years, Reuben. You're not the type to just accept being walked on. You're the type to build a spreadsheet, analyze the problem, and implement a solution. I smiled. You know me too well. So, I told him, not everything, not the specific legal maneuvers, but enough, the financial analysis, the realization that I'd spent nearly $350,000, the meetings with attorneys and consultants, the slow withdrawal of support. Rick listened, occasionally nodding. When I finished, he grinned. About damn time. You've been too soft on them for years. You could have said something. I did say something. Multiple times. You weren't ready to hear it. He moved his rook. What's your endgame? Make them understand that my support isn't infinite, that they need to stand on their own. And if they don't learn, then they move out. Good. He captured one of my pawns. They need to learn while you're still here to teach them. Otherwise, they'll run through your entire estate in 5 years and wonder why they're broke. That was Rick, brutally honest. It's why I valued his friendship. The next morning, James approached me in the kitchen. I was making coffee, enjoying the quiet before everyone else woke up. Hey, Dad, quick question. I already knew what was coming. The tone, the casual approach, the way he scratched the back of his neck. What is it? So my car. Check engine light came on yesterday. Took it to the mechanic. Needs some sensor replaced or something. $800. I poured my coffee. Added cream. Took a sip. That's unfortunate. Yeah. So I was thinking, could you spot me? Just until my next paycheck. When's your next paycheck? 2 weeks. And you don't have $800? We've been tight this month. Jennifer's birthday, the kids needed some things for school. Sell your golf clubs. The kitchen went quiet. James stared at me. What? Those Callaway clubs you bought last month. $890, if I remember correctly. Sell them. Problem solved. Dad, I need those for networking. Do you need them more than you need your car fixed? That's not the point. That's exactly the point. I set down my coffee. You have assets. Liquidate them. That's what adults do when they need money. But, or ask Jeff to loan you the money. He can afford it, right? Construction family money? James's face was going through interesting color changes. I can't ask Jeff for money. Why not? You have no problem asking me. You're my father, which makes it better somehow, that you feel more comfortable bleeding me dry than imposing on a friend. Bleeding you, Dad, that's not fair. Isn't it? I picked up my coffee. I'll be in my room. Have a good day at work. I left him standing there, mouth open, clearly shocked. Jennifer heard about it within the hour. She cornered me in the living room that afternoon. Reuben, we need to talk. About? James is upset. He said you were cruel to him this morning. Cruel? Interesting word choice. He asked for help, and you made him feel like garbage. I suggested he sell an expensive toy to pay for necessary repairs. How is that cruel? You know he needs those clubs for work relationships. Then work should pay for them. I didn't look up from my newspaper. Or he should budget better. Budget better? Her voice went up. We do our best, but things are expensive. Yes, things are expensive, which is why people make choices. $1,300 handbags or car repairs, golf clubs or savings. These are adult decisions. Her face went hard. What's gotten into you? Clarity? What? Nothing. Never mind. I turned the page. Was there something else? She stood there, clearly trying to decide whether to escalate. Finally, she turned and walked away. I heard her on the phone later, voice low and angry, probably talking to her mother. Good. Let her complain. Let them both stew. That weekend, they tried a different approach. Saturday afternoon, Jennifer brought Emma and Tyler to me. The kids looked uncomfortable, like they'd been coached. Grandpa, Emma said, her voice small, we want to go to that new adventure park, the one with the zip lines. That sounds fun, I said, but Mom said it costs money, a lot of money. Tyler was 10, still young enough to not quite understand manipulation when it was happening to him. It does cost money. About $60 per person, I think. So can we go? Emma looked hopeful. Of course. When would you like to go? Really? Jennifer looked surprised. Sure, Emma, Tyler, how about tomorrow? Just you and me. We'll make a day of it. Just you? Jennifer's expression shifted. Yes. Is that a problem? No, I just thought. We were hoping to go as a family. Then take them as a family. But if you're asking me to fund it, I'll take them myself. I'd enjoy the time with my grandchildren. Tyler was already excited. Yes. Grandpa, can we get ice cream too? Absolutely. Emma hugged me. Tyler hugged me. Jennifer stood there, her jaw tight, clearly not getting what she'd wanted. After the kids ran off, she lingered. This is because James asked for the car money. This is because I'd rather spend time with my grandchildren than hand you cash to spend however you want. We're not irresponsible. Then you won't need my money? She left without another word. Sunday, I took Emma and Tyler to the adventure park. We had a blast. They tried every activity, their faces lit up with joy. We got ice cream after, talked about school, their friends, their dreams. Grandpa, how come you and Mom seem mad at each other? Emma asked as we sat on a bench, watching Tyler try to finish his cone before it melted. We're not mad, honey, just learning to communicate better. Is it about money? Smart kid. A little, but don't worry about that. That's adult stuff. Dad says you're being mean. That stung, but I kept my voice level. Do you think I'm being mean? She considered. No, you're nice to us. You took us here. And I'll always be here for you. Remember that, okay? She nodded, satisfied. The next week, 3 weeks after my birthday, I couldn't hold back anymore. James was talking about the baseball game again at dinner. Some replay of his winning hit. How Marcus had been so impressed. How Jeff was connecting him with his father-in-law's company. Speaking of celebrations, I said, interrupting, when are we rescheduling my birthday dinner? The table went silent. James looked confused. What? My birthday dinner. You said we'd celebrate the next weekend. That was 3 weeks ago. Oh, he waved his hand dismissively. Dad, come on. The moment's kind of past. It seems weird to have a birthday dinner a month late, does it? Yeah. I mean, it's not really your birthday anymore. Jennifer jumped in. We can celebrate at Christmas. Make it extra special. No. I set down my fork. You stood me up. You promised to make it up to me. You didn't. That's the end of the discussion. Dad, you're being weird about this. Weird? Yes. How weird of me to expect my only son to honor his word. I left the table, went to my room, pulled out the folder from my drawer. $342,750. The eviction notice form. The trust documents. It was time. The shift started small, calculated. The way you move chess pieces across a board, not rushing but deliberate. 3 weeks after my birthday catastrophe, James approached me in the garage. I was organizing my coin collection, one of the few pleasures I still had that didn't involve watching my son drain my bank account. Hey, Dad, quick favor? His voice had that casual tone he used when he wanted money. The check engine light came on. Mechanic says it'll be around $800 to fix. Could you spot me until my next paycheck? I didn't look up from the 1889 Morgan silver dollar I was examining. Fitting, really. A Morgan scrutinizing a Morgan. Have you tried selling those golf clubs you bought last month? The silence stretched. When I finally glanced at him, his mouth hung open slightly. What? You heard me. Those clubs cost $890. I remember because you showed them to me. Very enthusiastically, as I recall. I set down the coin. Sell them. Problem solved. Dad, those were an investment. Jeff says networking on the golf course is crucial for... Then Jeff can loan you the money. I picked up another coin. I'm not a bank, James. He left without another word. I heard him complaining to Jennifer in the kitchen. Something about me acting weird and being stingy lately. Good. Let them wonder. The next incident came that weekend. Jennifer cornered me in the living room, Emma and Tyler trailing behind her like small, adorable hostages. Reuben, the kids are dying to go to that new adventure park that opened. You know, the one with the rock climbing and zip lines? She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. It's $60 per person. We'd love to take them, but money's a bit tight this month. I looked at Emma and Tyler. They were good kids. Not their fault their parents had the financial planning skills of lottery winners on their third bankruptcy. Tell you what, I said, I'll take the kids myself. Tomorrow work for you? We can make a whole day of it. Jennifer's smile froze. Oh, well, actually, I know what you meant. I stood up. But if you want me to spend money on the kids, I'll do it directly. Emma, Tyler, sound good? Yes, they shouted in unison. Jennifer's face went through several interesting color changes. She opened her mouth, closed it, then turned and walked away. I heard her hissing at James in their bedroom later that night. The tension in the house thickened like phoenix humidity before a monsoon. James and Jennifer kept glancing at me during dinner, these little calculating looks, trying to figure out what changed. Jennifer made a few comments about elderly people getting paranoid about finances, and seniors needing to trust their families. I let her talk, let them both stew in their confusion. Meanwhile, I had meetings, important ones. The appointment with Kenneth Lee, my financial consultant, happened at his office downtown. Sleek glass building, 20th floor. He'd done well for himself since we'd met at that asset protection seminar. Reuben, he greeted me, shaking my hand. Good to see you. Coffee? Black, please. We sat in his office overlooking the Phoenix skyline. I laid out my situation, all of it. The numbers, the expectations, the birthday that wasn't. Kenneth listened, occasionally nodding. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. You want to protect your assets from family members who view you as an ATM. Succinctly put. How much are we talking about? $730,000, give or take. He whistled softly. And they know about this? They know I have money. They don't know how much. They assume, I think, that they'll inherit it all eventually. I paused. That assumption needs correcting. Over the next hour, Kenneth walked me through options. Irrevocable trusts. Revocable trusts. Strategic asset repositioning. I took notes like I was back in graduate school. The revocable living trust is your best bet, he said finally. You maintain control, but the assets are protected. and you can specify exactly how and when distributions happen, even after I'm gone, especially after you're gone. Perfect. The meeting with Gerald Vasquez, my attorney, came 3 days later. His office was older, more traditional. Wood paneling, leather chairs, diplomas on the walls from universities that mattered. You want to know your rights regarding your property? He said, reviewing the notes his paralegal had taken during our phone call. Specifically, can I ask my son and his family to leave? Gerald set down his pen, looked at me over his glasses. Reuben, this is your son we're talking about. I'm aware. And his children, your grandchildren. Also aware, he sighed. Arizona is a landlord-friendly state. The house is solely in your name, correct? Correct. They pay rent? No. Any written agreement? None. Then legally they're considered tenants at will. You can terminate that arrangement with proper notice. He pulled out a form. In Arizona, that's a 30-day written notice. After that, if they refuse to leave, you can file for eviction. My heart rate picked up. It's that simple? Legally, yes. Emotionally? He gave me a long look. That's above my pay grade. I took the form, studied it. 30 days. There's also the matter of your estate, Gerald continued. You mentioned wanting to make changes. Substantial changes. We spent 2 hours going over every detail. The trust structure, the distributions, the conditions. By the time I left his office, I had a folder thick with documents, and a clarity I hadn't felt in years. The next morning, I opened a new account at Wells Fargo, a bank James had never heard me mention, transferred $680,000 in 3 separate transactions, spaced over a week, left $12,000 in my Chase account, just enough to look like a retiree living on Social Security and a modest pension. I watched my main account balance drop with each transfer. Each time, I felt lighter. James asked to borrow $200 just for groceries. On the same day I moved the last $200,000, I said no. He looked at me like I'd grown a second head. Since when do you say no? Since I started paying attention to my bank balance. But groceries. Jennifer just bought a designer handbag last week. I saw the receipt on the counter. $1,340. Sell that if you need grocery money. His face went pale. You're counting what we spend now? I closed my laptop, looked him straight in the eye. I always counted, James. I just never said anything about it before. That was my mistake. 2 weeks after my initial consultations, I sat in a notary's office, signing document after document. The creation of the Reuben Morgan Revocable Living Trust. The new will. The power of attorney. The whole structure Kenneth had designed, Gerald had drafted, and I was now making official. The notary, an efficient woman named Patricia, stamped each page with a satisfying thunk. That's everything, she said. Congratulations. Your assets are now protected. Protected. What a word. I'd spent 42 years protecting other people's assets. Never thought I'd need to protect mine from my own son. I drove home, documents secured in my briefcase. James and Jennifer were in the living room, watching some reality show about people who managed their lives worse than they did. They barely looked up when I entered. I went to my room, filed the documents in my safe, and then I sat down at my computer and did something I'd been planning for 3 days. I booked a plane ticket, the kind of ticket that makes a statement, the kind that changes everything. A one-way ticket to Las Vegas, departing in 2.5 weeks. I used the credit card James had access to, the one I'd added him to years ago for emergencies, the same card whose statements he occasionally checked. The charge would show up in 48 hours, $340. Then, because subtlety had gotten me nowhere for 12 years, I went to the bank, walked up to the teller. I'd like to withdraw $25,000, cash. The teller's eyes widened. Sir, that's a significant amount. Are you certain? Quite certain. Hundreds, please. 20 minutes later, I walked out with an envelope thick enough to stop a bullet. I deposited it in my safe, next to the trust documents. The pieces were in place. The trap was set. Now I just had to wait for someone to check the bank account. I gave James exactly 2 days. That's how long it took for him to notice the credit card charge. It was morning. I was making coffee, enjoying the sunrise through the kitchen window when I heard the footsteps. Running. James burst into the kitchen, phone clutched in his hand like a weapon. Dad, his voice cracked on the word. What the hell is this? I took a slow sip of coffee. What's what? He thrust the phone at me. His hand was shaking. Actually shaking. This charge, Delta Airlines, $340 to Las Vegas. Oh, that. I set down my mug. That's my plane ticket. Your... He stared at me. What do you mean your plane ticket? Why are you going to Vegas? To live my life? I picked up my mug again. I'm 70 years old, James. I've spent the last 12 years being a bank, a babysitter, and apparently invisible. I decided it's time to do something for myself. Jennifer appeared in the doorway, drawn by the commotion. Her hair was still messy from sleep, but her eyes were sharp, alert. What's going on? He bought a plane ticket to Las Vegas, James said, his voice climbing toward panic, without telling anyone. It's my money, I said mildly. I don't recall needing permission. Jennifer moved closer, studying me. Reuben, this seems impulsive. Are you feeling all right? Never better. James was scrolling through his phone now, and I watched the exact moment he saw the second transaction. His face drained of color, and I mean actually drained, like someone had opened a tap. He went from flushed anger to pale shock in 2 seconds flat. You, he swallowed hard, you withdrew $25,000? Yesterday, in cash. I did? 25,000. He couldn't seem to finish sentences. His mouth kept opening and closing like a fish trying to breathe on land. It would have been funny if it wasn't so pathetic. Where is it? Jennifer's voice had an edge now. Sharp, the velvet glove coming off to show the iron fist underneath. Somewhere safe. Dad. James set down his phone, held up both hands in a placating gesture. The same gesture I'd seen him use on difficult clients. Let's just talk about this, calmly. What's really going on here? I told you. I'm going to Las Vegas. For vacation? Dad, you should have said something. We could have planned... Not for vacation. I met his eyes, held his gaze. I bought a one-way ticket, James. I'm not planning to come back. The kitchen fell silent. Even the coffee maker seemed to stop gurgling. Jennifer found her voice first. You're not coming back. Probably not. Vegas for a while. Then maybe California. I've always wanted to see San Francisco properly. Maybe Hawaii after that. I've got the money. I've got the time. Why not? Why not? James's voice hit a pitch I hadn't heard since he was 13. Because you live here. This is your home. This is your home, I corrected. Or it was. You'll need to make other arrangements. Jennifer's face had done something interesting, gone very still, very controlled, but her eyes were calculating, running through scenarios. I could practically see the math happening behind her irises. What do you mean, make other arrangements? I took another sip of coffee. Let them wait. I mean exactly that. I'm leaving in 2.5 weeks. I recommend you start looking for a place to live. You're kicking us out? James looked like I'd slapped him. I'm giving you notice that I no longer wish to support you. There's a difference. But where will we go? We don't have... Jennifer stopped herself. Too late. Money? I finished. No, I don't suppose you do. Despite James making a decent salary, and despite the fact that you've had free housing for 12 years. Funny how that works. James's hands were shaking again. Dad, I don't understand. Is this about the birthday thing? Because I said I was sorry. You never said you were sorry. My voice stayed level. You said we'd celebrate the next weekend. Then you said the moment had passed. You never once apologized. He faltered. I didn't realize it was such a big deal. That, I said, is precisely the problem. Jennifer stepped forward, and I watched her deploy the charm, the smile. The soft voice. Reuben, I think maybe you're not thinking clearly. This is a very big decision. Maybe we should call your doctor. Make sure... I'm not senile, Jennifer. I'm angry. There's a difference. Angry about what? But she knew. I could see it in the way her eyes flickered. Angry that I spent $342,750 supporting you over 12 years. Angry that my son missed my 70th birthday for a baseball game. Angry that both of you treat me like an ATM with a pulse. The numbers hit James like physical blows. He actually took a step back. 300, he whispered. $42,750. Give or take a few hundred. I set down my coffee mug. I kept receipts. I'm an accountant. It's what we do. Jennifer's face had gone carefully blank, the kind of blank that meant she was reassessing everything. You're being unreasonable. Family helps family. That's what you do. Help goes both ways, Jennifer. This has been a one-way transaction for over a decade. So what? James said, and there was a note of desperation now. You're just leaving? Disappearing to Las Vegas to what? Gamble away your retirement? Maybe. Or maybe I'll start that coin collection I always wanted to expand. Or take up painting. Or sit on a beach and read detective novels. Point is, it'll be my choice. My money. My life. But what about us? James's voice cracked. What about Emma and Tyler? What about them? They're your grandchildren. And they'll still be my grandchildren. But they're your children, James. Your responsibility, not your retirement plan. I walked past them both, heading for my room. Jennifer grabbed my arm. I looked down at her hand, then up at her face. You can't do this, she said. Actually, I can. I already have, in fact. You'll be receiving formal documentation in the next few days. Formal? Her grip tightened. What documentation? I gently removed her hand from my arm. A 30-day notice to vacate the premises. It's a legal requirement in Arizona. My attorney assures me it's all very standard. The color that had drained from James's face earlier, it left Jennifer's now. She went white. Actually white. You contacted an attorney. I did. Gerald Vasquez. Excellent estate lawyer. He's also helping me restructure my will. I paused at the doorway to my room. Did you know that in Arizona, you can completely disinherit your children if you wish? I didn't, until recently. Very educational conversation. I closed the door on their shocked faces, leaned against it. My heart was pounding, but not from fear, from exhilaration. Through the door, I could hear them. Jennifer's voice, low and urgent. James's higher, panicked. The words weren't clear, but the tone was. They were scrambling. Desperate. Good. I'd spent 12 years being desperate. Desperate for their approval. Desperate for scraps of their attention. Desperate to believe I mattered. Now it was their turn. I sat down at my desk, pulled out the folder from Gerald's office. Inside was the 30-day notice, already filled out. All it needed was my signature and delivery. I signed it, dated it, put it in an envelope. Tomorrow I'd give it to them. Let them have tonight to panic. Let them feel for a few hours the way I'd felt sitting alone in that restaurant on my birthday. My phone buzzed, a text from Rick, my chess club friend. Game tonight, 7 p.m. I typed back, wouldn't miss it. I needed to talk to someone who actually gave a damn. Someone who'd listen when I told them about the looks on James and Jennifer's faces. The shock, the panic, the sudden dawning realization that their gravy train was about to derail. Rick would appreciate it. Hell, Rick had been telling me for years to cut them off. About time, Reuben, he'd said during our last game. You've been too soft. They're adults. Let them act like it. Now they'd have to. I looked at the envelope on my desk. At the plane ticket confirmation on my computer screen, at the safe where $25,000 in cash sat, waiting. Everything was in motion now, the chess pieces moving exactly where I wanted them. And James and Jennifer, they were just starting to realize they were in check, but they hadn't seen checkmate coming yet. That was still 2.5 weeks away. The next morning I delivered the eviction notice. 30-day notice to vacate. Typed, signed, dated. Legal and binding. I handed it to James at breakfast, set it right next to his cereal bowl. What's this? He picked it up, still bleary from sleep. Read it. He did. I watched his face change as the words sank in. Confusion, disbelief, horror. You're serious. Completely. Jennifer snatched it from his hands. Read it herself. This can't be legal. It's entirely legal. Arizona Revised Statutes, Title 33, Chapter 10. My attorney assures me it's very standard for landlords to terminate tenancy at will. You have 30 days from today. We're not tenants, James said. We're family. You're adults living in my house rent-free. Legally, that makes you tenants, and I'm terminating the arrangement. Dad, please! James's voice broke. We'll change. We'll be better. Just don't do this. I'd heard this before. The promises, the pleading. This time, I let it wash over me. You've had 12 years to change. Multiple chances. You chose not to. Jennifer's face had gone hard. We'll fight this. Feel free. I have an attorney. You're welcome to get one, too. I poured myself coffee, though I should warn you. Legal fees add up quickly, and you don't have much saved, do you? Her jaw clenched. I'd hit the mark. Over the following days, they tried everything. First came the bargaining. Dad, what if we started paying rent? James suggested. Would that change your mind? About the Vegas trip? No. About the eviction? Perhaps. But it would need to be substantial rent. Market rate is around $2,800 for a house this size. His face paled. We can't afford that. Then I suppose you'll need to find something smaller. Then came the guilt trips. Jennifer used Emma and Tyler like weapons. Grandpa, Mom says we have to move, Emma said one afternoon, her eyes wide and worried. You might, honey. But that's between your parents and me. But why? Don't you love us? Of course I love you. This has nothing to do with you. But we'll have to change schools. Leave our friends. Tyler's lower lip trembled. I knelt down to their level. I know change is scary, but sometimes grown-ups need to make difficult decisions. Your parents will find a good place for you, and I'll still see you all the time. Promise? Promise. Jennifer was listening from the hallway. When the kids ran off, she appeared. Using the children against me is low, Jennifer. You're the one traumatizing them by forcing us out. I'm teaching them that actions have consequences, something their parents should have learned years ago. She tried another tactic. Came to me with tears in her eyes, though I noted they didn't actually fall. Professional crying. Impressive. Reuben, I know I haven't been the best daughter-in-law. I've been selfish, thoughtless, but I'm trying to change. We both are. She took my hand. I let her, curious where this was going. Please give us another chance. We'll prove ourselves. How? She faltered. However you want. Just tell us what to do. Move out in 30 days. Her face hardened instantly. The tears evaporated. You're being cruel. I'm being honest. Something I should have been years ago. Then came the threats. If you go through with this, James said, cornering me in my room, we won't let you see Emma and Tyler anymore. I looked at him calmly. Are you familiar with grandparental alienation laws in Arizona? What? If a parent prevents grandparents from having reasonable contact with their grandchildren out of spite, the grandparents can petition for court-ordered visitation. I've already discussed this with my attorney. You're bluffing. Try me. Keep making threats about my grandchildren, and the next conversation we have will be in a courtroom. He backed down, but I saw the calculation in his eyes. He was consulting with someone, probably that lawyer friend of his. Good. Let him waste money on legal advice that would tell him exactly what I already knew. He had no case. Jennifer, meanwhile, was trying to find financial ammunition. I caught her in my office one afternoon, going through my desk. Looking for something, she jumped. I was just going through my private documents. I wanted to understand our financial situation, see if there was money we didn't know about. Money that might change my mind about Vegas. She didn't answer. You won't find anything useful. My important documents are elsewhere. Where? None of your business. I gestured to the door. Out. But I knew what she'd found. The nearly empty statements from my Chase account. $12,000. Another old account with $8,400. $20,000 total across both visible accounts. She didn't know about the Wells Fargo account. The $680,000 sitting safely out of reach. The trust that protected everything. I watched her mind working over dinner that night. Watched her trying to calculate. If I spent $25,000 in Vegas and only had $20,000 in accounts she could see, where was the rest? How much was there? She couldn't figure it out. Neither could James. Let them wonder. Let them panic. A week into the 30-day notice, they shifted tactics again. James's lawyer friend must have confirmed they had no legal standing, because the threats stopped. Instead, they tried manipulation through routine. Jennifer started cooking my favorite meals. James suddenly wanted to watch baseball games together. They asked my opinion on things, laughed at my jokes, behaved like attentive, caring family. Too little, too late. You're trying to butter me up, I observed one evening. We're trying to show you we care, James said. After 12 years of showing me the opposite, I'm supposed to believe 3 weeks of good behavior? People can change, Dad. Can they? Or do they just change tactics when they realize they're losing? He had no answer to that. 2 weeks before my scheduled Vegas departure, they tried one final approach: intervention. I came home from chess club to find them in the living room with a man I didn't recognize. Mid-50s, professional attire, sympathetic expression. "Dad, this is Dr. Patterson," James said. "He's a geriatric psychiatrist. We asked him to come talk to you." "Oh?" This was new. "About what?" Dr. Patterson stood, extending his hand. "Mr. Morgan, your family is concerned about some recent decisions you've made. Impulsive purchases, talks of leaving permanently. These can sometimes indicate cognitive decline in seniors." "I'm not cognitively declined," I said. "I'm fed up. There's a difference." "Even so, perhaps we could talk? Just to ensure you're thinking clearly." "I've never thought more clearly. I made financial plans with a consultant, legal arrangements with an attorney, and practical decisions about my life. That's not cognitive decline. That's called being an adult." "Your son mentioned you withdrew a large sum of cash?" "My money. My decision." "And a one-way plane ticket?" "Also my decision." I looked at James. "You brought a psychiatrist to diagnose me as senile so you could contest my decisions?" "We're worried about you. You're worried about your housing situation." I turned to Dr. Patterson. "Thank you for coming. Send your bill to James. He arranged this appointment. He can pay for it." "Mr. Morgan, if we could just—" "I'm done. Good evening, doctor." I went to my room, locked the door, sat on my bed, hands shaking with rage. They'd tried to have me declared incompetent. Actually tried it. That crossed a line I didn't know I had. I pulled out my phone, texted Gerald. "They brought a psychiatrist to evaluate my mental competence. Need this documented." His response came quickly. "Good to know. Keep records of everything. This could help your case if they contest anything." I lay back on my bed, stared at the ceiling. 18 more days until my departure. 18 days of this psychological warfare. But I'd been an accountant for 42 years. I knew how to outlast people who thought they were smarter than me. They were desperate now, making mistakes, showing their true priorities. Perfect. The more desperate they got, the more clearly they revealed what mattered to them. Not me, not our relationship, just the money and the housing. Let them spiral. I had a plane ticket, I had cash, I had a plan, and in 18 days they'd find out exactly what it meant to push a patient man too far. 16 days before the flight, I was packing. Not really, I wasn't actually leaving, but they didn't know that, so I pulled out my old suitcase, laid clothes on the bed, made it look like preparation. James watched from the doorway. "You're really doing this?" "Yes." "Where will you stay? In Vegas?" "I'll figure it out when I get there." "Dad, this is insane. You can't just—" "I can, and I will." He left. I heard him arguing with Jennifer in their room. Heard my name. Heard inheritance, and money, and what do we do? Not, how do we fix this? Not, how do we make amends? Just money. 10 days before the flight, they'd been apartment hunting. I knew because I found rental listings printed out, sitting on the kitchen counter, addresses circled, prices highlighted. The cheapest one-bedroom, $1,500 a month plus utilities. 2-bedroom, $2,200. 3-bedroom, $2,800, and that was in a neighborhood they'd never live in by choice. Security deposits. First and last month. Moving costs. They needed at least $6,000 just to move into anywhere decent. They had maybe $3,000 in savings, based on what Jennifer had said earlier. The math wasn't working for them. Good. 7 days before the flight. Jennifer broke down, actually broke down, not the fake crying from before. I found her at the kitchen table at 2 a.m, surrounded by bills, calculator in hand, face wet with real tears. "We can't afford to leave," she said when she saw me. "We've looked at everything, even the cheap places. We don't have enough for the deposit and first month, and that's before moving costs." "Then I suggest you prioritize differently. We don't have anything left to cut. You have possessions. Sell them." "Sell? What? My clothes? Our furniture?" "Your $1,300 handbag would cover most of a security deposit." Her face went through several expressions before settling on defeated. "I already tried. Resale value is maybe $600. Then you learned an expensive lesson about depreciation. You're enjoying this?" "I'm not. But I'm not saving you either. You made choices for 12 years. Now you live with them. She put her head in her hands. I almost felt bad. Almost. 3 days before the flight. James tried one more time. Sat me down in the living room, Emma and Tyler safely upstairs. Dad, I've been doing a lot of thinking about everything. The birthday, the money, how we've treated you. He paused. You're right. About all of it. Am I? Yes, I was selfish. We both were. We took advantage. We took you for granted. His voice cracked. I don't know how to fix 12 years of being a terrible son, but I want to try. What changed? The eviction notice? The plane ticket? The realization that your free ride is ending? The thought of you being gone? He looked at me, and for the first time in years, I saw genuine emotion. The thought of you leaving and me never getting to make it right. I sat back, studied him. If I cancel this trip? Please. If I cancel this trip, I continued, what changes? Do you suddenly start respecting me? Or do things go back to normal in a month and we're right back here? They won't, I swear. We'll be different. You've promised that before. This time, I mean it. Prove it. How? I pulled out the lease agreement I'd had Gerald draft, set it on the coffee table. This is a residential lease, 1-year term, $1,800 per month plus half of utilities. You'll pay on the first of each month, no exceptions. Miss a payment, you're out. He stared at the document. 1,800. We can't. Then you'll need to budget better, cut expenses, make sacrifices. You know what adults do. But that's my offer. Take it, or spend the next 3 days finding somewhere else to live. He picked up the lease, read through it. I watched his face process the reality. This is below market rate, he said finally. Yes, by $1,000 a month. Consider it a family discount, but it's not free. Nothing's free anymore. And the Vegas trip? I'm still going. His face fell. But I'll come back, eventually. If, and only if, you hold up your end. Rent paid. Respectful behavior. Actual effort to change. Dad, those are my terms. The lease is non-negotiable. The attitude adjustment is mandatory. The ticket is refundable if I choose. But I'm not choosing anything until I see results. Jennifer appeared in the doorway. She'd been listening. $1,800 a month, she said quietly. We can't afford that and pay down our credit cards. Then pay minimums on the cards. Or ask James to work more hours. Or you get a job. I don't care how you make it work. Just make it work. She looked at James. He looked at her. Some wordless communication passed between them. Can we think about it? James asked. You have until tomorrow morning. I'm not negotiating again. They disappeared into their room. I heard arguing, heard calculator sounds, heard one of them crying, couldn't tell which. That night I barely slept. Not from guilt or second-guessing, but from anticipation. Tomorrow was the performance of a lifetime. Morning came. I made coffee, made breakfast, ate calmly while James and Jennifer watched me with red-rimmed eyes. Dad, James tried one last time. Please, we'll change. Really change this time. Just give us one more chance. No. Why not? Because I gave you one more chance after the birthday, and the time before that, and the time before that. You've had $342,750 worth of chances. That's enough. I called a taxi. It arrived 15 minutes later. I grabbed my suitcase, packed with actual clothes, actual toiletries, made it look real. James stood at the door, blocking my path. His face was blotchy from crying. When had he started crying? Sometime during the night, I guessed. Dad, please, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was a terrible son. I took you for granted. I chose a baseball game over you. I deserve this, but please, please don't go. Don't leave us. I looked at him, really looked at him, saw the little boy who used to wait by the window, saw the teenager I'd helped through heartbreak, saw the adult he'd become, spoiled, entitled, careless. I spent 12 years afraid of losing you, I said quietly, afraid that if I said no, if I set boundaries, you'd cut me out. But you did that anyway. You cut me out of your life while still cashing my checks. So what exactly am I losing here, James? Your family. My family stood me up on my 70th birthday. My family treats me like an ATM. What I'm losing is dead weight. The taxi honked. I stepped around James, walked out the door, loaded my suitcase. Jennifer appeared on the porch. "Where are you really going? You're not actually flying to Vegas, are you?" I smiled, got in the taxi. "Guess you'll find out." As we pulled away, I looked back. James stood in the doorway, shoulders shaking. Jennifer beside him, arms crossed, face hard. The taxi driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror. "Airport?" "Actually, change of plans. Take me to the Marriott near Sky Harbor, the one on 24th Street. You got it." I wasn't flying anywhere. Didn't plan to. The ticket was theater. The whole thing was theater. A demonstration of power. A lesson in consequences. I'd spend the day at the hotel, read my detective novels, order room service, let James and Jennifer sit in my house, their former house, and contemplate their future. Let them spend hours imagining me in Vegas, gambling away their inheritance. Let them panic. Let them squirm. Then tonight, I'd return, and I'd offer them a deal. Not forgiveness, that would take time, if it came at all, but a path forward, terms, conditions, a way to earn back what they'd lost, if they were willing to work for it. Because despite everything, despite the anger and hurt and disappointment, James was still my son. Emma and Tyler were still my grandchildren. I didn't want to destroy them. I wanted to save them. But first, they needed to understand what rock bottom felt like. Only then could they learn to climb back up. I returned at 7 that evening. The house was dark, except for one light in the living room. I let myself in quietly, set down my suitcase in the entryway. James and Jennifer sat on the couch like defendants, awaiting sentencing. Emma and Tyler were upstairs. I could hear the faint sound of cartoons. Good. This conversation wasn't for them. "You came back," James said. His voice was hoarse, broken. He'd been crying more. Jennifer's face was blank, carefully controlled, but her hands twisted in her lap. "I said I might." I sat in my armchair, the one I'd bought 30 years ago, the one they'd tried to convince me to replace with something more modern. "Did you find an apartment?" James's laugh was bitter. "We tried. Do you know what a security deposit costs? First month, last month, deposit, we'd need $8,000 minimum. We have $3,000. Closer to $2,400 after bills due this week," Jennifer corrected quietly. I nodded. Let the silence stretch. Watch them squirm. "Dad," James leaned forward, "I know you're angry. You have every right to be. We've been terrible, ungrateful. I've been thinking all day about everything you said, and you're right. About all of it. Thinking isn't the same as changing. I know, but I want to change. We want to change." He glanced at Jennifer. She nodded, though her jaw was tight. "Tell us what you want. Please, we'll do it." I'd spent the afternoon at the hotel drafting this in my mind, refining it, making sure every term was fair but firm. "All right, here are my conditions, all of them non-negotiable." James grabbed a pen and notepad from the coffee table, started writing like his life depended on it. Maybe it did. "First, you pay rent, $1,800 per month. That's below market value by $1,000, but it's still substantial. The lease is for 1 year. I can terminate it with 30 days' notice if you violate any terms. You cannot." Jennifer's face went paler, but she nodded. "Second, you split utilities 50-50 with me. That's $190 per month on average." "Okay," James whispered, still writing. "Third, James, you will attend financial counseling. Weekly sessions with Kenneth Lee, the consultant I've been working with. You'll create a debt repayment plan and stick to it. I want to see progress reports monthly." "Yes, absolutely." "Fourth, you will organize and pay for a proper celebration of my 70th birthday at Giovanni's. You'll invite Rick from my chess club, my former colleagues, whoever I want there, and you'll apologize, publicly." James looked up. His eyes were wet. "Dad, I'm so sorry." "Save it for the party. I want everyone to know what you did and how you plan to make it right." He swallowed hard, nodded. "Fifth," I paused. This was the part that would hurt most. "I'm removing you as the primary beneficiary of my estate." Jennifer inhaled sharply. James's pen stopped moving. "Instead, I'm establishing an educational trust for Emma and Tyler. $200,000 to be accessed when they turn 25. conditional on completing a 4-year college degree or equivalent training. And the rest? Jennifer's voice was barely audible. The remaining $480,000 will be split. Half to charity, organizations I'm selecting now. The other half to Emma and Tyler, same conditions. You, James, inherit nothing automatically. The color drained from his face completely. He looked like he might be sick. However, I continued, you can earn your way back into the will. 5 years of meeting every condition I've laid out. 5 years of financial independence, of treating me with respect, of being the son I raised you to be. Do that, and we'll revisit the estate plan. 5 years, he repeated numbly. 5 years to prove you've actually changed, that this isn't just fear-talking. I leaned forward. I've already signed the documents. The trust is established. The will is updated. This isn't a negotiation. These are the terms. Take them or spend tonight, packing. The silence was absolute. I could hear the air conditioning kick on, could hear Tyler laughing at something upstairs. James looked at Jennifer. Some wordless communication passed between them. Her face was rigid, but she gave a tiny nod. We accept, James said. All of it? All of it? Jennifer? She met my eyes. For the first time in years, I saw something other than calculation there. Fear, yes, but also something that might have been respect. We accept your terms, Reuben. I pulled out the lease agreement Gerald had drafted, set it on the coffee table along with a pen. Read it. Sign it. First month's rent is due by the end of the week. James picked up the document, read through it, lips moving. Signed. Passed it to Jennifer. She signed. The financial counseling starts next week, I continued. I've already made the appointment. Thursday at 10. Don't be late. I won't. And the birthday party. 3 weeks from now. Saturday evening. Same time as the original reservation. I'll take care of everything, James promised. I'll make it perfect. I don't need perfect. I need present. I need genuine. That's all I ever needed. His face crumpled. I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Dad. Stop apologizing and start proving it. I stood, picked up the signed lease, walked to my room and locked the door behind me. My hands were shaking, not from fear or anger anymore, from relief, from exhaustion, from the weight of 12 years finally lifting off my shoulders. I'd done it, set the terms, drew the boundaries, took back control. Whether James and Jennifer followed through, that was up to them now. But at least I'd stopped being a doormat, stopped letting them treat me like an ATM with a pulse. I texted Rick, mission accomplished. Tell you about it over chess tomorrow. His response came immediately. About damn time. Proud of you, friend. I smiled, set down my phone, and slept better than I had in 12 years. 3 months later, I sat at Giovanni's in the same table by the window. But this time, it wasn't empty. Rick was there, regaling everyone with a story about a chess tournament. Kenneth Lee, my financial consultant, nursing a glass of wine. Gerald Vasquez, my attorney, laughing at something Marco, the owner, had said. 3 of my former colleagues from the accounting firm. Emma and Tyler, dressed up and excited. And James and Jennifer. They'd done it. Paid rent on time every month, though I knew it was tight. James attended his counseling sessions religiously, Kenneth had confirmed. They'd even started making progress on the credit card debt, $18,000 down to $14,000. Jennifer had gotten a part-time job, something in retail that she clearly hated, but she showed up every shift. The designer handbags had disappeared. So had the entitled attitude, mostly. And tonight, they'd organized this. Rented out a section of Giovanni's. Invited everyone I'd wanted. Spent money they didn't really have to make it happen. James stood up, tapping his glass. The room quieted. Thank you all for coming, he began. His voice shook slightly. 3 months ago, I missed my father's 70th birthday. Stood him up for a baseball game. Left him sitting alone at a table meant for 5. I saw several people glance at me. Saw the shock on their faces. I was a terrible son. Entitled. Selfish. I treated my father like a bank instead of a person. Took him for granted for 12 years. James's eyes met mine. They were wet, but his voice was steady. Dad, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for missing your birthday. I'm sorry for every time I chose something else over you. I'm sorry for forgetting that family means more than free rent and emergency loans. He raised his glass. To Reuben Morgan, the best father I never deserved. Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for teaching me what I should have learned years ago. Happy birthday, Dad. 3 months late, but I mean it with everything I have. Happy birthday, Reuben, the room chorused. I stood, walked to James, and hugged him. Thank you, I said quietly, just for him. This is what I wanted. Just this. He held on tighter than he had in years. When we pulled apart, his face was wet. The dinner was perfect. Marco outdid himself. Chicken marsala for everyone, extra mushrooms on mine. The wine flowed. The conversation was warm and genuine. Emma showed me her report card. Straight A's. Tyler told me about his soccer team. Jennifer actually asked about my coin collection and seemed interested in the answer. Later, as people were saying goodbye, Rick pulled me aside. You look different, he observed. How so? Lighter, like you've been carrying something heavy and finally set it down. That's exactly what it feels like. And James? Jennifer? I glanced at them. They were helping Marco's staff clean up, despite his protests. They're trying, really trying. Whether it lasts, who knows? But at least now they understand what's at stake. And if they backslide, then they're out. I mean it. I'm not their safety net anymore. I'm their father, but on my terms. Rick clapped my shoulder. Proud of you, my friend. It took guts to do what you did. The weeks that followed fell into a new rhythm. James and Jennifer paid rent, covered their share of utilities. James showed me his debt reduction plan. He'd been following it precisely. Jennifer's part-time job had turned into more hours. They were managing, not thriving, but managing, and that was the point. One evening in late August, James came to my room, knocked softly. Come in. He sat on the edge of my bed, the way he used to when he was young and needed advice. I wanted to tell you something, he said. My boss offered me a promotion, $800 more per month. I start next week. Congratulations. You earned it. Yeah. He studied his hands. I've been thinking about that day, the restaurant, when I left you there alone. James? No, let me say this. I've been replaying it in my mind for months, trying to understand how I could have been so blind, so cruel. He looked up. That day changed everything. Not the money, not the eviction threat. That day. Knowing you sat there alone on your birthday because I chose a game over you. What matters is that you understand now. I do. And Dad? That apartment hunt we did in May? When you threatened to kick us out, we looked at places, saw the prices, realized we couldn't afford anything. But more than that, we realized we didn't want to leave. Because of the free housing. Because of you. His voice cracked. You gave us everything and we gave you nothing. I don't know how to fix 12 years of being a selfish idiot, but I'm going to spend the next 5 trying, and after that, the next 5, and the next. I felt something in my chest loosen. Not forgiveness exactly. That was still coming. Slowly. But hope. You're on the right track, son. Keep going. I will, I promise. After he left, I sat at my desk, pulled out my coin collection. The 1889 Morgan silver dollar caught the light. A Morgan scrutinizing a Morgan. How fitting that it had come full circle. I'd spent 42 years as an accountant, managing other people's assets, 12 years as a doormat, letting my own family drain mine, and 3 months reclaiming my life. The final numbers were clear. $342,750 spent over 12 years, $1,800 per month now coming back in rent. It would take 15 years to recoup what I'd given them, and I probably didn't have 15 years left. But that was fine. This wasn't about the money anymore. Never really was. It was about respect, boundaries, teaching my son that love doesn't mean sacrifice without limits. That being family doesn't mean being a doormat. I'd wanted to save James, not destroy him. Wanted him to grow up, not give up. And watching him now, working, trying, changing, I thought maybe it had worked. My plan hadn't been revenge. It had been education. And the lesson, it seemed, had finally taken. I smiled, set down the coin, and felt, for the first time in years, truly content. The chess game wasn't over, but at least now all the pieces were where they belonged. If you liked this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.